podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings and sisters, I'm Tom. Can you smell it? We're so close now, we can almost touch it. That Coventry goal, the clean sheet gone, Solis subbed off in the 58th minute, and the Eze winner. It's all known and it's all coming very, very soon, which means one thing. Pre-season's almost done. Hooray! Tasman Fury written and published. Thanks so much for all the support on that. I hope it was useful. Price Pod's done. A new channel launched by somebody. Wow, it's all gone now. And we're about to see things come real, and I can't wait. Joined as always by that man who indeed has just made a new channel, Sam. Amazing editing on that, by the way. Do check it out. I'm sure Sam will plug it in a second. All good, mate. It feels like it's been a while. I was off on holiday last week, and yeah, definitely missed saying I think Solis is going to take off. I did luckily post it on the interweb, so I do have some plausible deniability.
That's
but
proof.
Hey, yeah, there we go. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for the plug, by the way. I wasn't going to, but yeah, I've launched a second channel as if I wasn't busy enough already in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, Pricey Talks Football. That is incredible editing on it, not done by myself, but I'm very proud of it. So yeah, go check it out if you get the chance. That's not what we're here for. We're here because we like talking about football, and football came back over the previous weekend. My beloved Southampton lost. So we're back in the run of things. It's all good to be back. Obviously, your team were much more successful, but let's talk about the fantasy football side of it. So we are, as always, who got the assist? A special welcome to all of our new listeners and viewers. If you're checking us out for the first time via Talisman Theory, which Tom excellently put together, I would highly recommend going and checking that out. So we're reciprocating the plugs here. Or if you found us some other way, like through one of my channels, then we hope that we do enough today to earn that retention and you stick with us for the remainder of the season. And of course, if you did enjoy those things, a little like, a subscription, or of course, a 5-star review would go a long way on the audio. On today's agenda then, reaction to the final friendlies of the pre-season and of course, the Community Shield, which we are reminded constantly is not a friendly at all, especially for those who win it, Tom. And then, of course, where we are with our current drafts with just a few days to go, heading into the FPL Gameweek 1 deadline. Our chip plans as well will be making an appearance alongside our assessment of how we feel the 200 club for 26-27 is going to shape up and who our nominees will be. And then ones to watch for the season ahead. We'll also do a bit of a podcast outline for the season, what our plans are for the general structure of our week-to-week process, which will take you through towards the end. It is Tuesday, the 18th of August. We are days away from the deadline. Community Shield and final friendlies are in the past. Brighton's Conference League qualifier is on Thursday, yet to come. And obviously that will be important for some injury news. And by the time you listen to this, you'll probably be within, 72 hours of the deadline. So, yeah, better start getting ready, Tom?
Yes, indeed. I really can't wait. I really, every season, I know it's mentioned a lot, and I don't like saying it until the last pod of pre-season, but I'm not a big fan of pre-season. I feel like we're pumping content. It's fine. It is what it is. I enjoy writing Talisman Theory, and I enjoy doing the price pods. Like, well, after I finish them, there's a lot of work that goes into them. And I like kind of when we get to, I suppose, the comfort of just kind of week to week stuff, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, the final friendlies, Community Shield, lots going on here. Final friendlies, Sam. I mean, I was away with dealing with one rampant toddler and one crying baby all weekend, plus the indoors. So I didn't get the chance to do much apart from kind of occasionally check in with you and check in with your other friends on the interwebs to see what was going on. I mean, I guess the two things that kind of really come to mind for me are Gomez limping down the tunnel at Brighton. Obviously, we'll see on Thursday what's going on there with him, because Brighton have got their Conference League qualifier against Tromsø, and also Bumo being on the bench. But I think that's one of those things that I'm not particularly worried about. But yeah, really interested to hear kind of what your highlights would be in terms of FPL relevance from that final day, because there was a lot going on. It was just too much for me to get on with, to be honest. So that's why I kept asking you, what's happening here, Sam? I've got no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a full roster of all the Premier League sides getting involved. So there was lots to go through. I'm sure we'll miss some stuff in summary, so do apologise. But yeah, some of the key takeaways you highlighted there. I think Umbermo being on the bench was somewhat of a surprise for most, but the more you dig into it, the more it does just look like he's played a lot of preseason minutes, more than almost anyone else, and therefore it was probably right to give Cunha a run out up top. So I think Umbermo will be fine for the short term. One thing I will note on that, which is giving me a bit of pause for thought, is Sesko is back in full team training now for the first time in quite a while. I don't think that's going to impact him for the first couple of weeks, but medium to longer term, and Burmo probably does get shunted back outright fairly quickly, probably after the Ipswich game, you would imagine at this point. But that might impact his minutes in the medium to long term, because then he's competing directly with Ahmad. Gomez, yeah, you're right in saying limped down the tunnel. That was after sitting down for 5 or 6 minutes in the dugout after getting subbed off. So I wonder if we're just making a bit of something over nothing there. And obviously, luckily, Brighton are the one team that we will still get some more information on, because we'll have a pre-match press conference for the Europa Conference League qualifier, then the game itself, and then probably another bit of information after that. So hopefully we're not abandoning all hope on the 5 million midfielder of choice at this point. Elsewhere, I mean, Brentford put on a clinic in what looked like their strongest possible 11, or very close to. Sangare played very well. Sharda also picked up 4 returns in that game. So is starting to get a bit more popular as a differential at 6 million. I like the look of him. He's very good on the big chances created, or big chances delivered to him, I guess, received. Chelsea looked pretty impressive. Rodgers got a start straight away off the back of a very short preseason, and scored and looked pretty good. So I think his minutes for game week 1 look pretty secure at this point. Spurs also looked reasonable, kept a clean sheet at home to Hoffenheim. Van Hecke looks like a bit of a DEFCON darling by the looks of it. Even next to Senesi, Van Hecke picked up a lot more of the DEFCONs. So it looks like we've got the dog-cat thing going on in a slightly unexpected way at Spurs right now. What else? I feel like there's definitely other bits that I'm going to be missing. Looking through though, I can't even think what else there is. Oh, I tell you what, the other thing, if you have not seen it, watch the highlights of the Leeds game, because not only did DCL get a couple of assists, of course that's very important. Not only did Joe Salah pick up some incredible high positions on the inside right, that is Joe Rodon to the uninitiated. But Muharemovic, the 5 million defender that I've been harping on about this whole time, I was very early to him, Tom. I've been talking about him for months now. I haven't. Bicycle kick in the box, looked very, very good. What a man. What a man. He will never do that again in his entire career, but it is quite funny to watch. I've definitely 5 or 6 different very particular highlights, but those are the things that came straight to mind for me.
The only other thing I can think of is that Trey Hume did another goal.
He did, yeah.
I think he started right back, didn't he?
He did. And both goals in preseason have been from set pieces, not from his positioning. So before people get overexcited about really attacking Sunderland right back who's playing right wing, the goals are a bit of a red herring, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that he's definitely, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but interesting one at that price. If you're bench boosting in one and you've got a particular chip strategy behind what you're doing. But I spoke to you. I asked you for your hot take on Hume, and you gave the standard pricey answer of I'm just not convinced, because I just think that the minutes aren't secure, and it's a player who may be a bit of a flash in the pan. I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of what you said.
That's the general vibes, yeah. I mean, he did start 34 games last season, to be fair, but I don't know if that will continue.
Just a player that I can see being one of those who's in quite a lot of Game Week 1 teams, that's fair. I can get it. 4.5, new promoted team first, Fulham second, good short-term pick. Very happy if you do want to go there. But yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm not sure it's hype. I think that's probably a negative thing to say. I'm not sure that like the interest in the engaged community at least is as warranted as it is. I think we always see some false signals, as they call them, in pre-season, and I wonder whether Hume will be one. I probably won't be backing it, but if you are,
I won't.
Fair enough. And yeah, the Community Shield stuff. I mean, that was all right, wasn't it? It was not bad at all. I'm surprised that Arsenal turned to an actual football team. Some of the best football I've seen us play for a long time. Really, really, very, very sexy stuff. Just like watching Brazil. And I suppose
they won a trophy.
Yeah. It's a real. If you're Jose Mourinho, you count it as a trophy, don't you?
Of course.
I'm sure that Arteta would as well. To be honest, for me, I mean, it's nice. It's good to see. It's one of those things that subjectively, obviously, I was very happy about for lots of reasons. The way we played, how our team, in terms of a very difficult season, I think we're about to see. When it comes to tactical familiarity, it's 13 teams, isn't it, out of the 20 who don't have who've got a new manager. I think tactical familiarity is going to be massive this year, and I think that is probably going to be the one, which is going to, I hope, just get us over the line this year. And seeing Solis play well was great. We'll talk about him later on, but Calafiori scored obviously in the first minute, and that sound you hear is the sound of millions of FPL managers bringing in Calafiori. But outside of that, Benny Blanco, Ben White was really, really good as well.
Yeah,
and City, it's a tricky one to kind of navigate. I know we'll get to Haaland. I thought Semenyo's width was probably something that potentially was a bit worrying for a lot of people, but the Doku injury, he's out for a little while. We heard today that might sort of change the tactical setup, but generally I kind of looked at the Community Shield and as a bit of a glorified friendly when it comes to FPL terms, and kind of just was just like, right, who's on the pitch, who's starting, what are we seeing from this? Good that Haaland played a little bit. He's not really been part of pre-season as far as I understand. Do correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. He's only been back a week.
And a few players like Solis as well, where been performing well in pre-season in a sort of slightly more elevated friendly, is able to translate some very good pre-season form in inverted commas into the Community Shield environment. And then can we kind of start to trust that maybe he might be quite good in the actual season? Well, I mean, playing City, even though it was a City that was clearly finding their feet, back to the tactical familiarity point, I definitely saw enough to get me excited and interested in him. And obviously you can guess that he's in my team at the moment. So yeah, generally a very good performance, and really, really nice to see Bruno G in an Arsenal shirt as well. And nobody said in the chat, but so this feels like an absolute trap. Yes, of course. As I said in the intro, 58th minute, he's going to be subbed off with a blank. 100%. It is written. It's his note.
Yeah. I think that's a really good summary. The way I read this game was it was between one team that seemed quite well prepared and towards the back end of their preseason, almost like really gearing up for game week 1, and kind of simmering over, ready to go. And with one or two coming back, obviously Rice and Saka coming back, and they're still not quite at full strength, but the way City used that game did appear to be, well, let's give the guys who've had no preseason minutes a run out from the start, see how long they can last, try and get them up to speed a little bit, and then we'll give people minutes where we see fit. Now, does that completely discredit it altogether? Not at all. It's still a trophy City would have wanted to win. And Arsenal have now proven that they can be solid against, a team that are maybe not cooking quite as well as Arsenal have been in pre-season so far, but yet still a very good attacking team. So Arsenal defensively looks solid all of a sudden. And I think more important than anything else, and you did hint at it yourself, is the minutes. We got a lot more information out of the minutes from a lot of these players than we would have from the performance levels. And someone like Solis getting 90 minutes on the left and not really having someone to come on in his place on the bench really was a very good signal for the short term. And I'm coming to terms and arguing now that maybe the first 2-3 weeks, Solis does look like a really, really good option. But it's when you get beyond 3, 4, 5 weeks that those minutes just gradually start dipping as they probably look at buying another left winger. Yildiz, I think, is heavily rumoured today, all of a sudden out of nowhere. Obviously, they were looking at Vinny Jr. I think other players have been rumoured. And then, of course, you've got Martinelli, who is still at the club, might leave, might not, we'll see. But if he stays, he will get minutes at some point. So short term, someone like Solis, I think Coventry looks great and he'll probably get 80, 90 minutes if he plays well enough. But longer term, not quite so sure. More on that later. But then, the Man City side of things, watching Anderson, O'Reilly and Haaland just come straight in and start the game. Looking back in hindsight, I can't believe that we didn't think that would just be the case because it's their only preseason match. They're going to need to get some minutes to get them ready for game week 1. So what better than to just give them as long as they can take in the first game and then just bring them off when they need to. So I think Haaland, O'Reilly, Anderson start game week 1. I don't think there are too many doubts about that now. But whether or not you think they look anywhere near their best is completely up to you, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, as I said, tactical familiarity again, even though obviously Maresca is from the Pep school and he's an acolyte of Pep and obviously has more than a passing resemblance to Pep. It was weird, wasn't it, not seeing Pep on the sidelines for City?
Yeah, it was odd. Yeah,
I still think that they're still getting to grips really with how he wants them to play, and I do think that sense of familiarity with a system is going to really, at least maybe in the early part of the season, as managers get everything kind of set up and installed and spun up. I do think those players teams who do have that sort of ingrained, established setup are going to have a bit of a benefit. That's not to say that you shouldn't be looking at teams that there aren't kind of a new manager in place, etc., and so on and so on. But it's something just to bear in mind, really. And I don't know, I think that's going to be one of those things that's quite important. The other thing I should have mentioned is, and Nobby just mentioned it in the chat, Odegaard's like a man possessed, honestly. 6.5 this year. One of those players who's always flat to deceive in FPL. I think that there was one sort of golden period for Odegaard when he did. He scored quite a few goals.
15 goals, 8 assists, I think, in like a 200 season, something like that.
Yeah, it was 200 club appearance back then, Sam. 22-23. Since then, it's been a bit. I think he then followed up with like a 180-ish, and then after that, a couple of seasons of being kind of in and out of the team due to injury. Will we see him kind of do better at 6.5? Probably. I think that the bar is spectacularly low, especially after last year with 70-ish points. I think he got. But I still think, because of what you mentioned about Solis, probably being nailed on for the first week of the season and having no real competition. I mean, we'll see what happens with Martinelli. It sounds like if we got Yildiz, then yes, that will obviously make things incredibly interesting for FPL and everything else. It just feels like our main, Adam Pritchard was saying this on the correspondent week as well, but the main sort of want seems to be someone like Konsa, who I don't think appeared in the Villa last Villa game. Wasn't even on the bench. So yeah, it might be interesting to see how that one sort of works itself out and whether we do go back in for a left winger. It does feel a bit light if Martinelli were to leave, just have Solis and probably Eze on the left. But last year we won it with Trossard and Martinelli as the left wingers. So if Solis has impressed the staff, him, Martinelli, and then Eze kind of hovering in the background, they might deem that to be okay until December, and then see where we land in January, sort of thing. So yeah, watch the space on that one. But I don't know. I just get the feeling that the business is probably going to come at the back rather than on the wing, unless something kind of magical occurs.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fair enough. Solis has looked good enough in pre-season, and there was a bit of promise about him anyway. So it's maybe they had a good look at him when he finally got to the club, and they were more impressed than they thought. Maybe he's a little bit further ahead, and therefore they're happy enough going into the season with him as the frontline left winger and maybe Martinelli as a backup. I find it difficult to believe or understand why they would let go of Martinelli if they didn't have a plan for another player in that position, because then they really do look very light. But I think if Martinelli stays at the club, then it's just a straight shootout between the two of them. Basically, whatever the case is, there will be a backup left winger ready to go. So I think longer term, Solis could be a trap. But for the first few weeks, if you're on a really short term chip strategy, for instance, he could be the ultimate upside for the first couple at the very least, because I think the minutes will be strong, probably up until maybe even the international break, but certainly for the first couple of game weeks. Yeah, it's very tempting at 6.5. I've liked what I've seen. A little bit assist heavy so far, but the data previously suggests he likes a shot as well. So hopefully it levels out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, our attacking data wasn't on fire last year. That's fair to say. But nonetheless, 6.5 in that team, which is obviously the champions of England. I think that's probably something to not be sniffed at, really. And I think that's a nice way of kind of putting us into our to where our drafts are right now. So I haven't seen yours.
I haven't seen yours. I removed the hide screens, but I haven't actually looked at it.
A bit behind the curtain there, yeah.
Right, I see
what have you done here. This is terrible. What's this?
No, you're looking at your one. Sorry.
No. Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah. No, I think you'll be saying that in a second when you actually do look at mine.
I've seen the shock, but it's a minor, boring shock, I suppose, if that were to ever exist.
That's why I trade in. That is why I trade in.
Yeah, but it can work. Right. Okay. We'll start with yours. Do you want to read it out, and then we'll compare notes, I suppose.
Obviously, this is completely not the final thing. No way in hell is the final thing. And there's a really important context behind this. I think bench boost is rubbish. I think I cannot overstate my disdain for bench boost. But a lot of this actually is the fact that, and we'll talk about chips in a minute, but I've decided that bench boost 1, free hit 4, and wildcard 6 is kind of the way I'm going to go. And that narrows it all down, which I really like, because it helps me contextualize my picks and really focus on what I'm trying to do. The reality is, for the opening 5 weeks, I've got 2 chipped weeks in bench boost 1 and free hit 4, because I've only got 3 unchipped weeks, which is 2, 3, and 5. And all of that kind of helps me set my team up for who's going to play when, who's going to do what. And the idea is I'm probably not going to make a transfer until game week 5, which is when I might get a Newcastle player or 2 for Hull at home. And I mean, none of this is particularly surprising to anybody, I don't think. So 4.5 goalkeepers at the back. I mean, you've got that as well. Fine, whatever. I think that they're kind of the necessary evil, really. 5.5 defender is I've only got 1 Arsenal defender. I see you've got 2. We'll talk about that in a minute. That is currently Benny Blanco. So my view since the Timber news, despite Calafiori scoring a goal, has been probably that Ben White is one to go for at the back for Arsenal. I think he did very well against City, as I mentioned, and I think he should probably be uncontested in that role. The main competitor is Mosquera, actually, but it remains to be seen whether we sign somebody else. Nonetheless, I think that he probably will get me through to game week 5, assuming he doesn't play in game week 4 when I take him out. And yeah, the only risk actually is that he has a season-ending injury 20 minutes into Coventry. Knowing Ben White, that is what it is. But I think that he's absolutely fine for there. 5.5, and then I've got 2 5.0 defenders. I really like the 5.0 defense category. The more and more I've looked at it, the more I think that there are kind of 3 really good options. 2 are in here, so Maguire and Ballard. The third is Chow. We spoke about him on the pod a couple of weeks ago in terms of really good XG per 90. But Ballard and Maguire versus Old Club, I just can't get over the capacity for either of them to potentially spike a double-digit haul with a goal in their opening pair of fixtures. Maguire, Hull and Ipswich, Ballard, Ipswich and Fulham, who I really back to not do very well. And I want both of them at the expense of one particular slot, which we'll talk about in a minute. 4.5's Aya. I think he should be all good now. Started last friendly. Vandenberg, I think, is out for a decent amount of time, at least up until the wild card. Good rate of DEFCON when he's been a centre back. Solid bench man for the first 5. He can come in if needed. So Ballard in game week 5 has got Man City away. I think he's got Chelsea at home then, which isn't great. But hey, you know what? We've got to think about DEFCON being kind of the main thing here. Either of them could get DEFCON that week. It's more about who I think at that point is going to concede least goals effectively. And completing the back, 4.0. I need one for this setup, and it's Leif Davis right now. It could be him, could be Diop. Bit of a hedge, but of the 4.0s at Ipswich, which is probably the only one I'm going to consider for that week at the back, if Davis is allowed to attack, then I think he's the best bet to potentially spike me a bit of variance, get me something. I'm not expecting anything, and I doubt I'll play this player again for the first few weeks barring a massive crisis. So think about it as White, Maguire, and Ballard basically playing 1, 2, 3, 5. That's kind of the way I see it. Midfield, Bruno, I'm not going to say anything about that at the moment, but we can talk about whether you remove one. Bumo, I've got at 8. I think it would be, for me, because I've kind of been set on it since the start, maybe that's bad thinking, but maybe it's not. I think it'd be criminal to not have double nice attack for the first 2. And I think Bumo's the best bet for minutes and returns, simple as. At 7.0, I've got Szoboszlai. Prefers to start with it. If it does go belly up, then fine. You know, there's lots of other ways to go. I know his ownership has been steadily dropping. I think it's now hovering around the 41% mark. I mean, that's fine with me. I've got Solis as the late comer at 6.5. I just feel like he could be a real gem at his price if he's able to convert the ridiculous underlying numbers we saw in Belgium into points and build on that brilliant performance on Sunday. We need to see. But I think that I'm happy to go that way. It might be that I might turn around and, you know, we'll talk about your team in a minute, but I might turn around and go, you know what, actually, I prefer to have Sangare, that's Mangari, I suppose, in my team and go for a double Arsenal defense setup. I mean, I could do that. And I think that that's completely viable as well. And yeah, the main talking point for nobody, because there's nothing to see here, is I've got a 4.5 midfielder, which is Regan Slater at whole. It's not fantastic, and obviously a real negative to the setup. And I'd encourage anybody fixating on this just to ignore that and look at the rest of like what it facilitates. The reasoning is that I think I'd rather at this moment have a 4.5 million mid and hope for 2 points, maybe DEFCON or something like that, alongside a second 5.0 rather than a 5.0 mid, especially if it's a no Gomez and a 4.5 million defender at the moment. That's kind of the way I want to look at it. If I change my mind there, it's likely that he would go up, obviously, Gomez. We'll find out kind of after the Conference League. And then Maguire might come down to Shaw, or Ballard might come down to Rodon, because Rodon and Aya actually rotate very well over the first 5. And the front 3 pick themselves. João Pedro, Calvert-Lewin, and Haaland. I know you've got something to say about Haaland, but yeah, for me, those 3 pick themselves, and I'm not going to go without Haaland to start the season. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Bench boost one is active. It's a terrible bench boost, but it is what it is. And I just don't care that people might think, oh yeah, well, the bench boost this is not your premium bench scoring week. Well, I mean, frankly, I just want to get rid of the chip. I could not give a stuff if you're worried that if you're thinking, well, you know, why are you bench boosting for 4.5 million midfielder? I don't care. I just want to get rid of it and move on with my life. So, and I think it enables everything else. So there we go.
Okay. So yeah, before moving totally across to mine, what I'll probably do is mention the players that I'm not going to talk about in mine, because they overlap with what you've just said. So Haaland, João Pedro, Calvert-Lewin, 3 of the 4 on the bench. So, I mean, I've got Kinski starting, but it doesn't really matter which way round. Then Aya and Davis as well, because O'Shea playing right back probably kills him for DEFCON a bit. So I might as well get the attacking one. Midfield, we've got 3 out of the 5 the same. So Fernandez, Szoboszlai, and Mbeumo. I do generally agree with Mbeumo being quite a nice upside pick for a short term. More on that in a bit, though. And then in the back line, I'm trying to work out. So we've got Davis, Ayer, both on the bench. We've both got Ben White at the moment. I share your feelings on him probably being safe-ish, barring an injury, until the international break and probably until Timber's back. So probably has a little bit of longevity there, and historically quite decent upside as well, and a good link up with Saka. I've also, though, actually, no, hang on. I'll also mention Maguire as well. So differences in the team are I have double Arsenal defense rather than single. So I've also squeezed in Calafiori. I might end up hedging the risk a little bit and go with like a Mascara as someone a bit safer if they're not rumoured to have Konza over the line anytime soon. But I quite like the upside of Calafiori mixed with White, even if there is a bit of risk there. In the midfield, I've had to save the money from Solis, who I do really like. I'll talk about him in a bit. But I've shaved 1 million off of him so that one of your 5 million defenders becomes a 5.5 Arsenal defender and double up. And then the extra 0.5 gets put onto my bench to upgrade your 4.5 midfielder, to Gomez at 5 million. I'm not overreacting to Gomez just yet. Obviously, I'm going to be very well aware of whether or not he's going to be injured going into game week 1. So he's in for now because it facilitates the structure. But I'm, again, very conscious that might end up needing to be either going up to a 5.5 like Sangare, or maybe down to a 4.5 like Slater, if I think he plays.
I think he should. I think he will.
Yeah.
He's just recently signed new contracts. Like, he started every preseason game. I think
He'll be okay for
as
game
well
week 1,
has started everyone. Yeah, he will start game week 1, and that's it. That's all I care about.
Yeah. James in the chat asks, why is Gross suddenly playing for Everton? It's just the color of their kit this season. It's all blue. It's really odd. I'm sure there's a reason that it's not the stripes. Anyway, this is all very boring, Tom, and we've all got very similar teams. I mean, you've got a Ballard and I've got a Calafiori, and you've got a Solis and I've got a Gross, and it's odd. Like every team's the same. And you know what? That creates opportunity, and it also creates risk. So without throwing too many cats amongst the pigeons, and without trying to freak anyone out, and please don't write in and say you're cancelling your subscription to Who Got the Assist, I present to you a no Haaland draft that I am seriously tempted by. And no, it is not my current live draft, but I can't stop thinking about how much of an opportunity this could have. So I'm soft launching it here. And if I get completely lambasted and given really good reasons why this is the stupidest thing on earth, then I will use that as fuel to figure out my decisions for the rest of the week. But I wanted to show my current draft and then what I am very seriously considering. And I think it is worth considering. In goal. So, okay, actually, I'll do this a little bit like as a flyover. So I've got double Arsenal defense still, but instead of White, I've got Raya in goal. So I've got the best keeper in the game, 6 million Raya. Calafiori stays, Maguire stays, but the rest of the defense gets upgraded to Nico O'Reilly, Ballard, who I love, especially for the strategy this would have, and then Tarkowski. So there's no cheap defender in there. They are all monsters. There is risk there because Calafiori and O'Reilly, who knows what the minutes are going to be, but they should both start, as we mentioned in the preseason friendly chat earlier. And their upside is ridiculous. So if you want to catch a haul, those are the players to go with. And then you've got Ballard, Tarkowski, and Maguire, all good in the air, all good on DEFCON. Points. Love it. Into the midfield. The only upgrade I have made so far is Gomez up to Solis. I love Solis, but I only love him for a couple of weeks. I think after probably game week 2 or 3, it gets riskier and riskier because they're either going to sign someone or Martinelli's going to come back into the fold and eat into his minutes. Maybe even Eze will as well. So Solis, I really love short term, but not longer term. But that's why he's made it into this draft. And then obviously the big problem here is no Erling Haaland. So I put in Thiago rather than Isak. I do have 1 million in the bank. So if you preferred Isak, you could have Isak. That's fine. But this strategy would be You go really hard at the first couple of game weeks, 1 and 2. You bench boost in 1 with probably the most stacked bench boost you're going to find. And I will contest anyone trying to find a better one. Although 2 Brighton at home to Aston Villa, I don't know. 1's on penalties, though, so I think it's okay. Then game week 2 looks honestly absolutely stacked still. And you've got the best captain in game week 2 in Bruno. But by game week 3, you've got one City. You're going to want Haaland. You're going to probably want a City midfielder. But I don't personally know which one at this point. So I'm either planning with this strategy of free hitting or just straight up wildcarding if it looks blindingly obvious who the correct picks are by that point. But I'm very open to it not being blindingly obvious. The idea would be free hitting in game week 3 and then using one transfer in game week 4 to get to double Chelsea, either Mbeumo down to Rodgers or Fernandes down to Palmer, maybe even both if you wanted, but you're not going to need to make any transfers outside of that until at least game week 5, because game week 3 is a freebie no matter what you do, because I'm using a chip. Bench boost game week 1, and then game week 2, you've got so many dilemmas about who you would want to start anyway. You could happily bench Solis if you wanted to. It wouldn't be a problem. Then you get to 5 and you're probably wildcarding either way to get to Haaland. But by that point, Fernandes has had his best fixtures and you can get rid of him as well. You might want to bring forward that wildcard to game week 3 and get rid of Fernandes a little bit earlier, bring in Haaland, etc., etc. But I'll leave that down to you. I think me doing this or not doing this rests on whether I genuinely think Haaland is the best captain in game week 1. Because if I don't, I'd captain Bruno, and I think it makes more sense if I'm just going to have Haaland as a player for the first 2 game weeks and I'm not going to captain him in either 1 or 2. Well, you know what? I would prefer to spread that money around and go really hard at the first couple of game weeks. Finally, what I'll say is this is a short-term strategy. If you look at the players in this team, Solis and Mbeumo in particular, but then also Maguire could also potentially have question marks about his minutes in 3, 4, 5 game weeks time. To start with, though, they are all rock solid for the first couple of game weeks, you would think. And not many people are going to be able to get like more than one of those. So there you go. I'm tempted. It's not my current draft, but it's worth highlighting to people the opportunity, I think.
I think it's all short term, really. I like teams which don't bench boost in 1 or 2 and look like they're kind of built in the old kind of fashion way to stay the course, for as long as possible, wild card at some point, blah blah blah. But I think that this season seems to really lend itself to bench boosting early, which in of its and then wildcarding early, which in of itself then kind of is just how you vary on the theme of chunking up that short term. With no Haaland draft, you are looking at the free hit in 3 or the wild card in 3, and as you say, it hangs on where you go without Haaland in 1 or 2. If you think that Bruno can match him, and it's Hull, your favoured, the dead horse you like to destroy, then fair enough. I get that. I believe it was a very noble dwarf who once said, "Faithless is he that says farewell when the road darkens." I certainly have seen a few bits and pieces about Haaland based on the Community Shield, which were downright odd. Some people seem to be concluding that under Maresca he won't get chances. All this
that's
sort of,
all. It
seems very. It's hyperbolic, isn't it? I mean, he may not get as many, but if there's one striker to back to convert, I think it's probably Haaland, isn't it?
100%. Yep.
It's kind of one of those where it kind of, I can understand the risk profile. I really do get it, honestly. It's just very much that you're making a very large bet that, and this might be for you, fair enough, that if Haaland does not go off and your player does, then fine. You are really flying from the beginning. But if Haaland does do bits against Bournemouth in game week 1, new manager, etc., then it does feel like a bit of it almost feels like you're free hitting in game week 1. You know, like when we talk about kind of the risk profile of basing it all in 1 week, and how you're kind of opening yourself up to variance.
Mm.
Haaland over his time probably has shown that, meriting his price, that he is worth the money to some extent, or at least there's consistency or trust with the armband. I don't know. I'm just a little bit unsure when you throw in ownership. That's the main thing.
Well,
Because-
should we assess ownership then? Because he's 70% owned right now. That means in game week 1, the maximum effective ownership is 140.
Well, plus triple
Well,
captain, right?
Who's triple captaining him though?
Oh well, that's the thing, because we're throwing in non-engaged managers, aren't we?
All right, so all the people I'm not going to care about by the end of the season are my.
Yeah, I know. But you could so quickly dig yourself into a hole, right? So imagine he starts the season like he started other seasons. Yes, okay, Bournemouth,
Sure.
Palace. No,
but it's only
those
2
games.
matches, and then
It
I can have
is,
him anyway.
It is. But you'd have him anyway if you wildcarded then with less information. If you free hitted them, fine, absolutely. I can understand that. Yeah.
Look, all I'm saying, the question is, and I again, my previous draft was in the previous section. My current draft's in the previous section rather. But the question is, the upgrades around the team, can it cover what you expect Erling Haaland to do? I think it is closer than people are giving it credit for, and I will say right now, if you're not captaining Erling Haaland in game week 1, give this real consideration, because if you're not captaining him anyway, you're captaining Bruno, then you've got a 15.5 million forward who you're not captaining for the first 2 game weeks.
Yeah.
And then you could easily shift your strategy to have him in game week 3 when you'd really want him anyway, and game week 5 when again you'd really want him. It's not like Thiago can't also score a brace, by the way, or Isak if you had him. They are capable strikers. They don't go at the same run rate as Haaland, don't get me wrong, but across a season, Haaland might get 250 points. They might get 180. And so in 1 game week, if they can even cover off 2/3 of the points Erling Haaland might score across the first 2, then the rest hopefully make up for it. And remember, if you think Fernandes is the best captain, you've got 200% of a player that everyone else has got at most 100% of. So you can regain points there if that goes well too. So if it's all if, like, captaining Haaland is an if. Like, if he blanks, then you've missed out on a massive opportunity to go against massive ownership. Like, I'm not saying I'm not going to go with Haaland. No. If I think he's going to get 80 plus minutes against Bournemouth, then he probably is the best captain. But if I think it's more like 65, 70 and Bruno's going to get 90, I think it makes it a bit more even. And plus, the final thing I will say is, in the final few days of this preseason, all of the drafts are starting to look very similar. And it won't be that you can't make ground up if you've got a similar draft to quite a few other like content creators or whatever. But the amount of upside you've got if you go against the crowd now is really high if it works out. And you've still got time to make up for it if it doesn't. So I don't know. I've never taken a risk like this at the start of the season. I am more tempted than ever because Haaland's had such a short preseason. Doesn't mean I'm going to definitely do it, but I wanted to float it here because it's very, very tempting based on some of the short-term picks you can have in this side.
I do like it. Yeah, okay. I think that you can definitely make that bench boost buff to infinity, and you have more certainty, in inverted commas, about the points potential of that bench boost. And that was weird. It kind of feels a bit, because against convention, perhaps we were all building a team for the short term. I thought this is like the logical endpoint of doing that. You know what I mean? Because by game week 6, when most of us probably would have wildcarded, myself included, we're all going to again flip into a similar team. So the idea is that you end up with all these points in the bank, and everyone kind of without Haaland, and then there you are kind of flipping into a team which covers that. No, I do like it. I understand the calculation entirely. My only reservations at TSB and knowing the real politique of FPL, which is incredibly beige. And I think that, as we said on our kind of unwritten rules thing, or whatever we spoke about, or whatever we called it last week, on the mistakes make, etc., that sometimes popular picks are popular for a reason, and with Haaland, it is kind of incontrovertible how good he is. The problem is, as you say, what you're saying about him, his preseason and being truncated, and that being kind of a contextual factor to throw in. And at the end of the day, as you say, if he blanks and your captain does well, then there's the upside. No, I'm tempted by it, but I don't know. I don't know if I go to sleep at night. It's just my.
It's not. Look, it's not for the faint-hearted, and like, don't at any point get me wrong. I am in no way questioning Haaland's abilities to score braces in the first 2 game weeks. That's more than possible, but he doesn't score braces every single week. And like, yes, ownership is very important, and we talked about that last week, but ownership is also an opportunity. It doesn't have to be a defensive thing. It can also be a look at all of that crowd going with a 70% owned striker who is the most expensive player of all time. Well, let's figure out whether or not if there is a way of taking that on and maybe going against that and risking some stuff in the first couple of game weeks and see what you can build. I'm on the fence as to whether or not the spread of the money is enough to make it worth taking that gamble. Like, I would say there are, I think it's 6 or 7 upgrades in this side. A few of them are marginal. 1 or 2 of them are like more obvious, but cheaper picks can still score points. So like, it's not just Haaland you're taking on with this draft. It's also players like Leeds defenders, or I don't know, maybe like a cheaper midfielder or something like that. Maybe Wirtz as well, who I haven't got in, or Rogers, who's got a bit of ownership, or Gabriel. Like, you're always taking on other players that you hadn't otherwise considered. Yeah, I don't know. I look at this team and I think it's really powerful, but obviously it's missing one big.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Honestly, I suppose we just don't. I think at the start of the season, I've said a few times, like the phrase "tabula rasa," like clean slate. I just feel like we don't know anything. You know what I mean? And I prefer to kind of just stick to. I mean, obviously, yeah, you've got like one space or for someone like Solis, but mostly it's kind of just sticking to what you know. I feel like you can. I mean, I had a few kind of bits back and forth on Blue Sky with people about kind of, without Haaland, the team that's better. I kind of see that, but you can only play 11 players each week.
Yeah.
After bench boost 1, it's done. You know, and you've got a lot of that money is sat on your bench.
Yeah, for 1 week.
Yeah, after that week, it's all kind of, you know. Obviously, I know you wildcard in 6, so it's a very short-term thing, or wildcarding in 3 indeed, if you're no Haaland. So I know it's a short-term thing, but I feel like because of the flat pricing structure this year, if there were players outside of the big 3, or maybe even the big 2 in Haaland and Bruno, who were priced highly, and it allowed you to access those. I just feel like with Haaland and Bruno, as most people kind of have set up, like me, like boring old me over here, you can still put together like a team that based on what we know now, I'm sure I'll be eating my words this time next week, but based on what we know now, does look like it's going to score points commensurate to the team that's in front of me here. That's the only thing.
That is the thing. Like the teams that we've currently got as our drafts today don't look like they're really weak in any particular one aspect. I think what it is like each position has like a couple of little compromises that all together might add up to something that you could maybe cover with a no Haaland draft with all of those other upgrades. But yeah, I mean, these are the teams we're currently on. Haaland's in at the moment. I don't know. I just wanted to show it. There are people considering it. I'm considering it as well. But But yeah, I don't want to like come out guns blazing and say that is my live draft and then cower into this at the end, because this is my current draft. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I could take on Haaland for a couple of weeks. I might get a bit of variance go my way for once, and off we go. But yeah,
I think kind of the only thing, you being you, when you get to game week 3, obviously the temptation to obviously there's like a free hit and you stick to the wild card in 6. But for those who don't want to do that, if you're wild card in game week 3, I just worry about the information deficit as well. I'm not saying, obviously my one's predeterministic. I'm probably going to be free hitting him for wildcarding in 6. That's the way I've set up. So that's quite a small time frame as well. But I'm going to have double the amount of information than those who are wildcarding in 3. So when you get to game week 3 and people are kind of rolling out shiny new lovely wildcard teams, but after international break, those could be absolutely broken, and you've lost the most powerful chip in the game, specifically for wildcard. If you're free hitting in 3 to get Haaland in, fine. The counterpoint, obviously, is what happens if the vibes are, and maybe we'll move on to chip strategy here a little bit, Sam. What happens if the vibes are that Haaland has started the season like a train and it's looking like triple captain's going to be that week, and you're free hitting defensively almost then to get Haaland to cover your backside that
I don't
week?
think so. No, because
you are, because you of course you are, because the EO for Haaland is going to be absolutely off the charts. But
I would have free hitted either way. The EO is irrelevant. I would have free hitted to have him regardless. So it's not defensive as a reaction to people triple captaining. It's just what I would do. Also, to me, that spells opportunity later on, because then everyone's used their triple captain on Coventry. I can use it on Haaland playing Hull. So great. Like you for every chip you can't use one week, you can use it another. So yeah. The other thing I would say about, like, again, I'm gonna start sounding like I'm the guy who's definitely gonna go without Haaland here, but I'm not. But the other advantage is that I keep coming back to game week 3. It's all very well and good saying, oh yeah, some people might triple captain him. Not many people are going to have double or triple City that week, or double or triple Liverpool, because look at the drafts we're starting with. Like, we've both got 1 City. Neither of us are planning on making transfers in game week 3 to get to more. And that's, like you said, a potential triple captain opportunity. It's a great fixture. So, okay, I can't triple captain Haaland if I free hit or a wild card that week, but I can get triple City, and probably a pretty good triple City, and probably a triple Liverpool as well. So, you know, there's give and take in everything. Obviously, you miss the opportunity to triple captain, but there are loads of good opportunities to triple captain as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't lose too much sleep there.
Yeah, no, I think there's again, I think it's absolutely open, and that's what I like about it. And I kind of do hope that more people will go no Haaland. I think that I just have got the cojones to, as we stand. Maybe on Friday, if I can get my family out of the house and I spend the day drinking, then maybe I'll end up with no Haaland draft. But with a rational mind, I feel like I can't take the risk at the moment, because I'm a beige. I'm just beige.
Well, you know, I'm the same as you normally as well. So like, we'll probably end up on quite similar.
I don't know. There's always a bit of a maverick to Pricey. That's what I'm going to say. I mean,
it rarely works.
There's maverick to me as well, but no, I do like it. I completely kind of. I've been kind of defending owning Haaland, but at the same time, I'm taking your points on board, and I completely agree with them.
Yeah, and I to you as well. In fairness, like I'm obviously taking that argument because I presented the draft, but yeah, I keep coming back to it. I am on a very similar draft to you at the moment for good reason. Like we both believe Haaland is an amazing player. No one's debating that. And the team you can build with both Haaland and Bruno is strong. So maybe it's not worth the risk.
Yeah. All right. So other than that, I mean, bench boost 1, I think we seem to both be in cahoots about. I think that, you know, if you do fancy bench boost 2, fair enough. But I just want to get rid of it as soon as possible. Have less, you know, ifs and buts. We rely on Coventry versus Hull. Both games last year were 0-0. So if you're going triple defense, fair enough. I do get it. what are you going to do if there's an injury in game week 1? It's going to affect us on bench boost 1. So obviously there's ifs and buts. Yeah, buts. It's going to affect everybody. But just get
at
rid
least
of
then you won't have to use transfers to deal with it. Like, it's out of the way if it happens in game week 1. Like, it's just bad luck. You don't have to then double down by transferring someone. If it's game week 2 and you get a couple of injuries in 1, that it's like, well, do I take a -4 to make sure I get the bench boost off? I was prepared for it, so I probably should, right?
I think we discussed last week that it's better to bench boost out of the first half of the season and then bench boost into the second half of the season.
Yeah,
just because there's much more information available. And in the second half, bench boost 1, you want to get that money out of your reserve goalkeeper fundamentally, and maybe you'll have more information when you wildcard out of that. And I think that international break's a good time to do it, not because you've got 3 weeks to basically peer around with your team, but because also you get a requisite amount of information. You can build a team which has, as per what I was saying about kind of my 5.0 defenders or whatever, enough in it where you don't really need to make that many transfers, as we know now. Obviously, it may be that Szoboszlai's, just a defensive midfielder and it's all rubbish and you want to get rid of him. That's what free transfers are for. The idea is that after that, then you stack your free transfers based on knowledge. I think kind of triple captain, it feels like a vibes one. Free hit, I think, is really interesting because as we're kind of talking about, with no Haaland, I think you're probably going to be free hitting him free. And I do think there's going to be a small part of you, at least, hoping that triple captain isn't going that way for Coventry and free. But free hit 4 is where I'm going to go. Basically, I want to avoid that Manchester derby. And I think there's 4 targetable fixtures that week based on what we know now, which of course is all we've got to work with, which are Chelsea Hull, of course, the headline fixture, Liverpool Fulham. As I said many times, I think they're going to struggle this year. Prove me wrong and maybe I'll change my mind. Brighton Coventry and Palace Ipswich. Probably you can build, if you go in and have a look at it, you can build a really, really flipping strong team of that. Even with Haaland in, and have 10 other players around him, like all of the headline players, you can kind of shove them all in. I think that week is the week that looks the best for free hitting early doors, really early doors, obviously. I'm sure there'll be other weeks, and you can use it kind of just when the vibes hit you. But for me, it really helped with the planning to just kind of look at it and be like, right, okay, I'm going to free hit in 4, which means that I've got two chips weeks, as I said earlier on, which helps me kind of think, right, okay, someone like Gross, for example, that everybody absolutely loves, and I'm no different. I think he's a fantastic pick at 5.5. But do I really need the guy? Well, I'm going to play him in game week 1. Yay, fantastic. Of course I am. And then game week 2, they've got Chelsea away. Well, he's not going to be in my team. He's going to be on my bench. Game week 3, they've got Leeds away. Leeds at home. But I've got Solis, Szoboszlai, Bumo, Fernandes, and then the standard front three that everyone's got in Calvert-Lewin, João Pedro, and Haaland. So I'm not going to play him then. Game week 4, Coventry away. Well, I might want him for that. Game week 5, who have they got? Lo and behold, Arsenal. Do I need him for any of those weeks? I need him for 1.
Would you not play him in game week 3 over Pedro?
No, absolutely not. Because
really?
No, João Pedro scores goals against Arsenal. And I think that I've only got 1 defender, right, in my setup. So in my situation, I probably want João Pedro to score.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm going to be playing João Pedro in that game. So for me, I don't see a use for Gross apart from game week 1. Obviously, he's a great value pick. All of these things kind of just help to define and help you kind of, I suppose, optimize, without using that word in the pejorative sense, what you're doing with your team. And I really like free hit 4 as a way to go. I know James and Planet was also talking about it as the way he's going to go, for what it's worth. But yeah, I think that those 4 targetable fixtures are really, really sort of the way I'm looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said about free hit 4, I completely echo. So I won't go over it. But yeah, on the strategy I'm currently on, I like the look of that. I also do quite like the look of free hit 12. It feels quite far away, but with Arsenal playing Man City that week, it could spell opportunity to just bin off 5, 6 of those players at a later point. Just a bit of an outside shout there. I've already mentioned free hit 3. And then the other one I wanted to flag was because not everyone wants to bench boost early, right? So I think there is a nice-ish looking strategy, which would be like wildcard 6 or 7 into a bench boost 8. So if you don't want to do that bench boost early and you don't mind wildcarding into a bench boost rather than out of, then I think it's game week 8 that looks pretty decent. But yeah, I mean, the strategy I am currently on is wildcard 1, maybe free hit 4, and then bench boost 1, free hit 4, wildcard 6. If it were to end up being the no Haaland, then we've already discussed it'd probably be bench boost 1, free hit 3, wildcard 5. So I'm basically just shifting the other 2 chips up a week. Either way, quite likely to all get played by game week 6, barring the triple captain. Or I could just try and long it out without needing to wildcard, which is possible because if you look at the picks in our teams, barring 3 or 4 of them at most, a lot of them do have that longevity. So it is possible to just hold off on the wildcard if you want. I just, knowing how many managerial changes there are, system changes, new players, I can't see a world where we don't pick up enough information by game week 6 where we just like rip up our teams and go again. It just feels so likely. And like even in a normal season, that tends to happen. So this season, I'm almost banking on it happening. So I want to go more aggressive for the first few weeks with what little information we actually already have. And then collect information and then wildcard using said info as soon as I can. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you've said on chips there. I think every suggestion was a correct one.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that normally, as I've said a few times, at the start of the season, we'll be setting up for something that would last us an awful long time.
Yeah.
But locking in game week 6, saying, we've got 18, 20 game weeks until the next time we hit wildcards. We've got time to use the information we've got to accrue transfers, build a team, which hopefully will, likes of Rail will come in just to see us through. And I think that's more than possible. I know it's very beige again, but it's a logical way to look at the year ahead. And I think that's absolutely fine, honestly, because not everybody's going to be doing that. Those people are going to be spaffing all their chips, wildcarding game week 2. We see it all. And it's just a case of where you end up and where your team ends up, as I said earlier on, where you find your own fun when it comes to how the season goes. So, yeah, there we go. Let's move on to the 200 Club for the year ahead. Or maybe kind of subtitle what the hell are the premiums going to do? Because last year was rubbish. Data Review and Talisman Theory picked out that premiums dramatically underperformed last year. The average of premiums was down from circa 180, I think, over the last kind of 5 or 6 years to 148 last year, which is a drop of 32 points, or quick maths, about 18%. So basically a fifth fewer points. Some people are saying it's the advent of the squad game, and I think the pricing structure of this year seems to also agree with that, where you've got 2 proper premiums in Bruno and Haaland, as we termed them in the past, with 10 million plus. And the question is it going to stay that way with the advent of Arteta ball and Arsenal being terrible people, or is it cyclical? And will we see a reversion to basically a talisman bonanza? A talisman doesn't need to be a premium. It can be someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who I wrote about in Talisman Theory, as being the focal point of their team. But the 200 Club is kind of that gilded, vaunted, velvety ropes club of individuals who really excelled in a particular season. Obviously, Mo Salah wasn't ever present up until last season. The likes of, I don't know, Sergio Aguero, Herman Son, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford. Remember him? quite good ones. And all of these players have made appearances in 200 club, and it's something that we'll probably try to keep track of as the way it goes. And I think it's a general chat about nominees, really, because you've got Bruno, you probably got Haaland. I don't think we're looking quite at a Salah fall off season for either of them, maybe. And then last year, the only other two were Semenyo and Gabriel. With the bonus changes, I noticed earlier on this preseason, Gabriel would not be in 200 club this year. And then you've got a plethora of other players who are slightly underpriced due to their performance last year. The headliners probably are Bukayo Saka, Cole Palmer, and Alexander Isak. Who do you think is going to make it this year? I don't know whether we kind of just say, you know what, I think maybe Bruno and Haaland will make it. But other than that, any kind of nominees for making it there?
Yeah, I mean, Haaland almost certainly barring a major injury. I think Bruno is like 80-90% gonna, but like if you actually look beyond last season, hadn't been a consistent 200 clubber. In fact, I think, was it 4 seasons in a row he'd not quite made it before that. So actually, more often than not, he doesn't quite make it. Last season was a record-breaking assist year for him, and they've got Europe again now. So I wouldn't be stunned if he didn't make it. I think he's more likely than not, but I could see it being a 180, 190 and him just cutting it pretty close. I hate to say it because it feels so negative. I am struggling to pick out many nailed on for the 200 club. Like, I think we might have an even more exclusive club this year than last. And last year we only had 4. The reason for that is the Premier League, as a general trend, the bigger clubs seem to be stocking up on really good backup options all the time. So Saka previously, prior to Madueke and prior to like injuries, would have like comfortably been in my recommendation for 200 club because he's got the quality if he plays 38 games and 90 minutes most weeks. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to get rotated because Arteta needs him fresh for the back end of the season. And I think that will probably ensure that he doesn't quite get there. When he's on the pitch, his points per game are fantastic still, but I just don't know how long he's going to be on the pitch and if he's going to have every single week. Palmer, I would say, has a decent shout of getting to 200. I'd probably just about shove him in there. Again, Chelsea, a bit like United last year, will benefit from no Europe. He's on penalties. He plays in an advanced role, so I think he's a decent shout. Liverpool-wise, Isak is probably the best bet. Because it looks like he's going to have penalties, centre forward, talismanic, potentially, and he's got history, but he could go down injured pretty easily because he usually does these days. So even him, I'd have question marks about. 1 or 2 defenders might get lucky. I mean, Gabriel could get there again. I wouldn't be surprised. He did miss out on a few games last season, remember? So although the bonus would have gone down if he played the full season, it probably would have been significantly inside the 200 club. So I think he could probably get there. And then maybe O'Reilly as like a very outside shout if he ends up getting 90 minutes a match. I think that could be really interesting. Outside of that, I mean, I've seen João Pedro shout. Without penalties, I just don't know. Strikers need a lot
to
make it. Thiago's not going to get as many penalties this year, you wouldn't think.
No, absolutely not.
Semenyo, but he's not on set pieces, not on penalties.
Did last year. Well, I
he
guess
did it last year, but
at
Bournemouth. Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. I hate to be the doomsayer, but I think it might be a really weak year for 200 club. I think the point's going to get shared again.
I think it would be fascinating if it are, Sam. Honestly, obviously it would change the complexion of my July next year because I'll have to try to find a way to make Talisman Theory relevant.
The 180 club.
Yeah. Luke Listler's group. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I look at it at the moment, and sure, we've had players that have come through from nowhere. Jamie Vardy, Mahrez, obviously, Chris Wood, 24-25, literally got 200.
Can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. Jared Bowen, 21-22, it can happen. And Jared Bowen's probably the exemplar of, if someone like Calvert-Lewin had like a god tier year, then it is possible.
It is.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Calvert-Lewin will get in the 200 club, but a
Please
player like
do.
that getting it would be absolutely fantastic. I think that, like, João Pedro perhaps is a shout for it. The only reason I'm saying it is because of Morgan Rogers, and because of the impact that's going to have on everything around him. I know that obviously you've got Cole Palmer, who's coming back to fitness. I think I wrote about this Talisman very little bit, but Cole Palmer coming back to fitness as a supplier, and obviously will take the set pieces, will take the penalties. Him plus Rogers with the movement may mean that João Pedro does get the environment, I guess, the platform without Europe to potentially get there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
maybe.
be surprised as well if Palmer gets there. I wouldn't. We've seen this years, and every year the one big team that doesn't get Europe is the team that we end up going for. And I think I would not be surprised if Chelsea end up with one player in 200 club and one player damn close. It wouldn't surprise me. I just throw what you were saying about João Pedro not being on penalties. Johan Wissa, 24-25, got 185 points. Obviously, no Europe, wasn't on penalties, and was playing for Brentford. Brentford obviously great, but they aren't Chelsea. No matter what you think of Chelsea, and believe me, I'm probably with you if you're not a big fan of Chelsea. They do have really good players. And I think that could mean that João Pedro does get there. And the other one I'd probably maybe throw your way at the moment. It's tricky, isn't it? Semenyo, perhaps, maybe. Isaac, I think, probably is a really good shout for it. I
If he
think
can
that
stay fit, I agree. Yeah.
If he stays fit, I think that he will take penalties, as mentioned over Szoboszlai, and I think that he might make mockery of that 9.0. Defensive wise, I completely agree with your shout of O'Reilly. I mean, last year was his first year really of playing consistently in the Premier League. That's something that we shouldn't forget. We saw Trent Alexander-Arnold that first year. Do you remember when he was 5.0? Were you playing back then?
Yeah.
And he was just like an absolute revelation.
They do come out of the woodwork sometimes. Like it's just hard to legislate for that, like predict that happening, because otherwise we'd have him in game week 1 because we know something no one else does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look at how's Maresca going to play him is probably the key question here. I don't know whether there's anything kind of concrete about this, but I'm sure I saw somewhere that he kind of sees him as a left back almost. Given his profile and his movement on the pitch, drifting into the final third, drifting into kind of goal scoring positions, listed as defender, it won't take much for O'Reilly to get there. Actually, 160 last year, 29 appearances. That's a very decent 4.7 points per game. You've got the uptick really there to make it work. I was looking at other players, the players from Spurs or something like that, the kind of players who probably weren't in the mix last year. Someone like Pedro Porro, for example, I was thinking, could there be? Now they've strengthened significantly, but I don't think so. So maybe looking at O'Reilly, João Pedro, and Isaac as my 3 to make it alongside Bruno and Haaland. But yeah, I would not be surprised, honestly, if we do kind of sit here next year and kind of go, well, we've got 2 premiums again, maybe 3. I don't know. I really kind of wonder whether this is going to be a slightly under average year because of all of the tactical familiarity and systems that are coming in with new managers. Honestly.
Ironically, does that make Erling Haaland even more valuable if you can't rely on big points from too many other players and they are more spread around? Like, does that make Haaland across a season that consistent, way above 200 point player that you can just take to the bank? Does that make him stand out more, perhaps?
Well, I think so, because I think he won Talisman Theory. Spoiler if you haven't read it, but do go and read it. I spent a lot of time on it. Do go and flip and read it. But the reality is that that bankability for a player over the course of the season. If you're going about Haaland early doors, absolutely. But there's always going to be a plan for you, probably, to get back to Haaland, right?
Mm.
And that bankability is probably what drives players like Mo Salah being high in our sort of us all having a soft spot for a player like that. See also Eden Hazard, see also Alexis Sanchez before he went to United and played the piano. That's what's that those players are kind of what FPL is all about. It may change. It may just be that we end up with a squad game, which is cool. I mean, that's great because it's a reflection of modern football mirrored in FPL. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously kind of that is my default. I just don't know. And I think that kind of is nicely linked to ones to watch for this year as well. Obviously, let's skip the goalkeepers. Lol. I mean, we might find that this might be the year. Nick always got very excited about Emi Martinez almost getting to the 200 club. I don't think beyond. I just don't think we'll ever see a goalkeeper in 200 club. I may be wrong, but I don't think we will. You need like kind of like Kelleher, maybe no pen saves.
Yeah, I think that's 10 saves. He's there. Yeah.
I think there's a few defenders who are quite cool and worth interesting. You were quite high on Neco Williams, weren't you?
Yeah, not to a 200 point.
No.
Right,
we're on to ones to watch now.
Got you. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. Ones to watch. Yeah, I mean, if he can put up similar to Munoz, and like historic underlying attacking data is pretty good already. In the new system, I think he could be really good. When the fixtures align, I think he'll be in a lot of teams. I also quite like the idea of just the general Nottingham Forest defense overall. Like they've signed Diamande as well, who's coming at 5.5 alongside Milenkovic and Murillo. All three could rank pretty well on DEFCON. They might be options at some point. Really like Vuskovic at 5. Don't know if he'll like immediately start, but if he can put up the DEFCON he has historically and the goal threat, he's got ridiculous goal threat for a centre back, like far beyond the likes of even like Gabriel Van Dijk historically. So we'll see if it translates, but again, one to watch. And Muharemovic as well, I think is in that kind of general category. Also quite like Palestra, who you've put on screen too, in the defensive area. And then, yeah, midfielders, Mamadou Sangare, I feel like weirdly attached to emotionally for some reason, which makes no sense because I've never seen him play prior to Brentford and I've only heard good things. But like for some reason, I'm like, yes, he's my boy. I love. He's Elliot Anderson Mark II, and I loved Elliot Anderson last year, so I have to love this man. But yeah, I do expect him to be pretty good this year too.
Fair enough. I think defensively, yeah, Palestra, I think taking up those, we're all looking for the Marcos Alonso, aren't we? And I think that he's taken up those positions.
Yeah, just needs so many assists to make it as good as a DEFCON guy.
Agree. Which makes me talk about, well, actually on that, De Kuyper at Brighton at 4.5 had the highest XGI per 9 months of any defender last year. Admittedly, he got 17 starts, but there's a good chance he starts the season at right wing. If it's 0.37 XGI per 90, a really interesting pick, especially if it sticks. He's out of position. I think he might win every team by game week 6. If Matoma is eternally out and they've got Minte out for a long time and this guy's De Kuyper starts performing very well, suddenly you've got a gift in your hands in De Kuyper, even if he's kind of whatever he costs. If he's a defender and playing right wing, yeah, it's fine. Diamande, you've mentioned him. Yeah, I'm going to mention him as well. A foot manager hero, always ends up at Real Madrid, always ends up as an elite defender. One to keep an eye on. And then I've got a couple others. So Chow, really decent. Yeah. Obviously, I can't in good conscience back. I did say earlier on he's my third sort of 5.0 that I really like. I can't in good conscience back Newcastle at the moment because there's so much going on there. But we mentioned it on the pod, the price pod, really decent XG per 90 of 0.2. basically. I think it was maybe like 1.8, 1.9. But I mean that's ridiculous for a centre back, especially if you factor in that he was getting kind of, I think it's about kind of 8-ish DEFCONs per 90. I mean that's really good. I mean he's a player that I'm really looking at buying in, as I mentioned, for game week 5, because I think that he could potentially be the next one that they end up sending to Liverpool, basically. I just I can see that. The other one's Brantwaite, Everton. So decent-ish DEFCON per 90, and one of those players who we've kind of forgotten about a little bit. He's in my draft team for what it's worth, if anyone cares about that. But a good one of those players who I think over the last couple of years, if you look at their DEFCON, look at the numbers, look at their stars, would easily have got 10, and or nearish 10. And I think that he might, he's had the tutelage when he's been on the pitch of the old war dog James Tarkowski. And I think that I wonder whether he kind of takes the baton almost from James Tarkowski for the year ahead. Just one to watch. I really like it. And staying with Everton, James Garner, who I really, really flipping wished was fit. Because if he was in game week 1, I'd have taken him.
Yeah, same.
Over 12 DEFCON per start. XGI wasn't too bad. Had
Set Peters as well, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, what a
might even be the backup penalty taker behind. Actually, no, Barry took one as well. Maybe he's third.
Yeah, no, it's
I'll
not
happening.
It's not happening. But he again in my draft team, I think he's just one of those players who's really, really undervalued in the Elliot Anderson vein of the individual who could tick along for you and is high in mind for me in game week 6 as a bit of a set and forget, really. Manuel Fernandes at Spurs probably also fits into that category. When we looked at the indices, I think he was just below James Garner. One of those players who comes out quite nicely on the DEFCON. I think it was slightly below.
But still competitive.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously more sort of vanilla. You've mentioned Mangare. I'm not going to mention that again. But Rogers and Modern Gibbs White. I think Mark on Clash Correspondence, Mark Southerns, I don't know who he is, but apparently he's something to do with FPL, was saying he probably thinks this is the last year that Gibbs White is probably with Forest. So if he can translate his business end sort of form into a whole season, then that's kind of gangbusters. And then Wilson at Leeds as well. I wonder whether Calvert-Lewin and Stack could perform miracles basically for Leeds, and one of the only teams I think that are settled under their manager. Obviously it's their first year in the second year in the league, so maybe they'll kind of fall off a cliff, but we should need to see. Any forwards who have caught your eye, Sam?
Garcia, keep an eye on at Fulham. I think on wildcard, they fall into a fixture run of all 3 promoted clubs back to back. So probably one to monitor for now, but probably going to be on penalties. Has a bit of pedigree from Real Madrid. I rate him relatively highly as an option at some point. Igor Jesus could be interesting. I also do like Wissa. I saw, who was it? Andy, I think. Talking about him earlier. I don't think I'd go with him to begin with, but if he ends up being that starting centre forward for Newcastle at 6, if he's on penalties, he could be fantastic value for money at some point this season. Anyone else I've missed? Probably lots. But yeah, I think there's some good options at 6, but none better than DCL to start the season with. Back into the midfield very, very quickly. Ismail Assar is worth noting as well. Always a good option at 6.5. I think some Palace fans are a little bit worried he's going to be playing quite wide in certain scenarios, but I still think he's going to be very interesting. There was one other. Who was it? I can't remember. So we're just going to... Lefay as well. Could be an interesting one. A bit of DEFCON. Good, decent enough attacking threat and penalties when Diarra's not on the pitch. And Diarra hasn't been starting all the games in pre-season. So that could work at 6 million. Just one to monitor as well.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't want to start throwing names out. I was going to say something about Keane Lewis Potter. I thought better of it, but I'll edit
Well,
that.
now you have.
I'll edit it. I mean, I'll change it over if he does do well. But I think forwards wise, Igor Jesus is one that I
Yeah.
really like. Obviously, people are saying he's not good enough and blah blah blah.
Who's saying that? I thought he's been quite good.
Glasner absolutely transformed Mateta, like absolutely flipping transformed him. The guy was a joke. He was being left out for Edouard. We all kind of saw him as being a kind of an itinerant forward, and he made Mateta into a France international. No joke. There's no dispute about it. The guy from before Glasner and after Glasner, night and day. And I wonder whether that's going to happen with Igor Jesus. I really do. He's got all of the ingredients. He does look. I mean, this is eye test stuff, but has the movement, has the instinct to make the decision between the pass or the shot. And I just really like him. Whenever I've watched him, he's so eye catching. And I know that's really kind of crappy way of doing it, but I wonder whether he's going to work with Igor Jesus and making him to a player worthy of someone like Mateta. Like, is he going to basically become a player who's in consideration alongside Thiago? I don't know. I just don't know, but I really like it. And I also Willa Sula at Newcastle. I think the last 10 weeks of last year, like he basically morphed into a Newcastle number 9, thinking about Alan Shearer and Alexander Isak. I think that he's definitely got it in him to do that role. So yeah, I want to keep an eye on that and see how it goes. Both these players 6 million. I can see either of them becoming players that we jump on the bandwagon of over the course of this year. But hey, these are all just names that we're throwing out there. I just can't wait for it to start, honestly, now, Sam.
Yeah, I can't wait to be proven wrong on everything I've said in preseason, as I usually am. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully, this is the season we can both jointly finish in the top 10K at the same time. That'd be really good for the show. Doubt it's going to happen, but maybe we're the ones to watch for the season upcoming, Tom. You never know. Did we mention Solis in ones to watch? I think we've talked about him enough.
I don't know.
He just is. Yeah.
It's worth mentioning, isn't it?
Yeah. He's great.
Yeah.
I
think he'll be all right for a little while. Put that way.
I mean, he could be all right all season. Who knows? But yeah, certainly for the short term. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Before we start going on for 3 hours about every single player that could score points this season, why don't you run us through our pod setup for the upcoming season, Tom?
Yep, very quickly, we met up virtually this year because of having a new baby, and discussed how we're going to do this year's pods during the game week. So start off game reviews, and I know not everyone loves it, but I like to think some people actually care about how we're doing. We'll keep it short and sharp unless something's actually happened, which is noteworthy. So Sam's gone without Haaland, and Haaland has scored a hat-trick against Bournemouth. Then obviously we'll talk about it for a little bit longer.
I was going to say 2-second preview, and then we'll review, and we'll move on very quickly.
Yeah. Form versus fixtures does stay this year. So looking ahead, obviously mostly this is going to be relevant after game week 1. But as we do get into the season, it'll make more sense. Got a table of players to target for the week ahead. And what their fixtures are, what the underlying data is. It will look very, very silly next week, but it will start to snowball and will start to make a lot of sense. The new thing is the off ramp that we're doing this year. So Nick used to kind of do the market forces, players being sold. And I felt like Sam, that was the bit that we kind of felt like we were missing a little bit last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously do form versus fixtures more from a players being bought perspective, but it's all well and good saying, oh, you should go and buy all these great players, but is it worth selling certain players? And I think a good way of analyzing that is, well, let's look at who is being sold and whether or not we generally agree with them being shipped off, or could you hold on? Could you be a bit more patient? Is it worth the transfer, basically? And also, are there some players that maybe aren't being sold that there is an opportunity to get off whilst the ownership is high and look elsewhere at perhaps some of the players that we've highlighted in the previous section? So yeah, it's kind of the opposite to form versus fixtures in the sense that we're looking at the selling side of FPL rather than just the buying side.
Yeah, I think that when players are being sold, and this will make a lot more sense when we're actually in the season, but when players are being sold, sometimes there's opportunity, as I mentioned last week or week before last. Often there are players that become a bit of a blind spot. Like you've accrued a lot of value in them. They've been in your team for a long time, and you kind of miss the opportunity to sell them. And in modern FPL, you've literally got about a week or two where the opportunity is. So we kind of are going to try to observe, monitor, keep an eye on players who are perhaps beginning to lose their luster a little bit. And is there an opportunity to sell this person? Buy in the next sort of one, maybe a week or two even before the curve, and is that going to elicit some gains for you, especially in a very sort of truncated value curve that we see nowadays? The key talking point, which used to be kind of right up top, I think we're going to put that towards the end, just because I think that some people want to come in, want to hear kind of the meat and potato stuff of form versus fixtures, the off ramp. If you want to stay a bit longer, you want to hear us kind of go off road, talk about more existential, more meta things. I think that that's kind of where that sits quite nicely, whether it's a bit of behavioral science, whether it's a bit of team structure stuff, whether it's kind of us talking about a particular player, a bit of particular debate. I think that all of those things sit quite nicely towards the end because we've got the form versus fixture, we've got the off ramp, we've got kind of the situation on the ground, as it were. What does that mean is kind of it works well with WGTA's ethos, and I think that works nicely as kind of a bit of a build with kind of the pod structure. And finally, our teams, just as a bit of a setup, and that's absolutely fine. I'm sure people do want to know exactly what we're doing, right? I hope.
Yeah, I mean, if we've discussed what we would recommend you guys do for an hour and a half, it's probably good to see whether or not we actually follow our own advice towards the end of the show, which we often don't, in fairness. But yeah, I think this is a good structure for the year. We might end up tweaking it if things don't work out perfectly. And obviously, we're always open to feedback from you guys, so let us know. But I think this makes for a good setup for the season, hopefully a sustainable one, and hopefully a very successful one as well, Tom.
Let's see. I think it'll be top 100k for both of us. I think we can both go home happy. We'll shake hands now, leave the whole season, and we come back and do pre-season again.
Perfect. Yeah. Lock and loaded. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's flip and go.
Let's get out of here. Right. Thank you all so much for watching and for listening. And thanks again, especially if you're new, or if you're returning, of course, as well. We really hope that you'll be on board for the season ahead. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on socials. On Blue Sky, it's Who Got the Assist, all written out one word. I'm FPL Pricey on there. On X, it's WGTA_FPL or FPL Pricey. And on YouTube, it is Who Got the Assist, all written out. And again, I'm on there at FPL Pricey. I do have another channel now called Pricey Talks Football, which is much higher, like graphic design and production. I've spent a bit of money on it, talking about like the deeper discussions of football. The first one was on PSR, switching to SER and what that means for clubs. Next week, it's going to be on Man City's 115 charges, when they're going to be, what the implications are going to be. Tune in if you want. If you don't, no problem at all. Only time I'm going to reference it on this pod. So yeah, that's your lot. If you enjoyed the pod, if you could follow us on those social channels, give the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. And of course, if you're watching along on YouTube, if you could leave a like, hit subscribe, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But in the meantime, this is the last time we'll see you before game week 1. Very, very good luck from me. And I'm sure Tom will say the same thing.
Very good luck from me if you've got the same team as me. If not, I wish you an absolute dreadful game week 1. No, I'm kidding. Well, thank you for those who are here with us. And thank you for all listeners, all viewers, new and old, somewhere in between. Always great fun. Pre-season is, a bit of a grind, but it's always one of those things that when you come out of it, you're satisfied. Done a good job. Hopefully we've done a good job. Reminder that Talisman Theory is now published. Find it on our socials. It's free. It's all on Medium. Do check that out. We'll be back next week to pick over the wreckage following the opening game week of 2026-2027. Hope you assist you this pre-season, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?